to be Marc Crawford these days. You fly home from Switzerland as the league champions again, coach. Congratulations with the Zurich Lions. You arrive just when the weather turns beautiful in Vancouver. You got time to golf, and you get to watch your son compete in the Stanley Cup playoffs as a coach with the Vancouver Canucks. Pretty good to be Marc Crawford these days. How you doing, Coach?
It was, and it was a lot of fun last night. Being at the rink and seeing the atmosphere live and in person. I mean, that was a fun game last night. Never out of it. Last goal wins, and boy, the fans loved every minute of it.
So, where does an ex-coach of the Vancouver Canucks watch a playoff game from? Where were you last night?
I watched way up. I was actually right by Kelly Hrudey, where his station was there last night, and had a high up view. But you know what? I don't get to watch very many games live. So just being in the building and seeing the NHL game live was a special treat for me. And it was fun. My daughter-in-law, she was up in her seats up there, and I guess they don't treat video coaches as good as they treat head coaches, because we used to
Yeah, that stands to reason.
I was going to say he's got the video coach view so that he can compare notes with Dylan.
We always sat up there, Mark. We loved it because you see the chess pieces. It's a lot of fun. We talked to you after the craziness of the comeback victory in Nashville, one that was a legit smash and grab for the Canucks. They were not the best team on the judges' cards. Yeah. Last night was a comeback that I think we all agree they deserve. Like, they played well.
Absolutely. I thought even in the first period where Edmonton outshot them, the Canucks had the better of the chances. It's just when they did give up their chances, they gave them up to really good players, and hence the lead that Edmonton got. But I love the way that they played last night. I think the Canucks defense is really, it's a good defense against that group. I mean, you're always going to give up chances against McDavid, and you're always going to maybe give up some chances against Draisaitl, who is an excellent passer, as much as he's a great shooter. But they do a pretty good job of holding tight and protecting the middle. I thought the Oilers had a lot of trouble with the Canucks, especially through the neutral zone yesterday. And, I thought Elias Lindholm was outstanding. And you saw that just how important he is for them, not only in the role that he plays as that center who can play against top people, but he was so good in the face-off circle. And they were getting chances all night off of face-off plays. And I thought, it was a complete win for the Canucks last night, even though, they had to fight back. And probably fans of Edmonton would sit there and say, well, they stole it. No, they didn't steal it. They were the better team probably through about 65 to 70% of that game.
What is it about their defense, coach, that you like in the matchup against the Oilers forwards?
I like their size and their mobility. Soucy is a really good player. His reach and his ability to close on people is great. I thought you saw Big Z at his best last night. Mm-hmm. He plays at his best. He's a top four defenseman. And, you add that into the mix. I mean, we're not even really talking about Ronick and Quinn Hughes right now. And they're doing their jobs. They're doing, I think a really good job of moving the puck up and getting exits out of the zones and that sort of thing. But they got experience back there as well. Myers and Cole, unheralded, but they get stops. And, as coaches, you love to see stops because the puck gets out of your end, it's out of danger, and now you get to be on the attack. And I thought the Canucks were great on attack last night.
Miller gets his goal, and it's a fine goal. But I look at the other goal scorers, Garland, Joshua, Zadorov, and even Lindholm, who, makes a decent amount of money, and he's in an elevated role, but he's not one of the core group members of this team. And I think, and that's not to say, hey, where are the stars? If you're going to get to 5 goals and compete with a team with this offense, you need other people to chip in. And they, to have all those different goal scorers, that's a team effort as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it was. And the one comment that I would make about that is that I thought Peterson played great last night.
Yeah.
And he elevated Mikhailov as well. I thought, the weak sister on that line was Hoglander. So they got to hope that he comes to life, because they showed a lot of life last night. And I thought they gave the Oilers' third and fourth line so much trouble. And that was really positive for me to see that Peterson was just so good last night. And he was great on the power play. He had a couple of rockets there, and probably was a little unfortunate not to score. But that's what it looks like it's going to be in this series. If they can find a way to limit McDavid, and then, Elias, who's so used to playing the Oilers from his Calgary days, Lindholm, he loves this battle. You can just tell he's enjoying it. He's used to it. He knows the characters. He knows them all too well, even better than the Canucks know those characters in Edmonton, and he relishes the opportunity to compete against them. So if they can hold their own with those top two lines, then I think that third and fourth line, I give the edge to Vancouver in that side, and I like the Vancouver defense probably a touch more than I like the Edmonton defense right now. And the goaltending, well, neither one were great last night, but it really didn't matter. It just added excitement to the game because there were mistakes. And when there's mistakes, you get chances.
Coaches pulled their hair out, but the fans love it. Mark, Connor McDavid, not a single shot on goal, just one shot attempt. He has never been that low in a playoff game. Did you see something specifically they were doing with him, or was it just an off night for 97?
I think they've got really good people out against them. The matchups are quite effective, and I always liked when I was coaching that you have two pairs that you feel comfortable playing against top people. And I think the Canucks feel that way right now. Even when they end up with Quinn Hughes and Roenick out there, they were mixing it up a little bit last night. You'd see Roenick out there with Big Z, because I think Adam probably felt that Big Z had a little bit of something going, so he knew he could double him up on a couple of opportunities. But I love the game from Soucy and Myers last night. I thought they just cover so much. They have great sticks, and like I said earlier, they get stops. So the gap was good yesterday. Didn't give Connor a lot of chances to break open, although he was dangerous probably 5 or 6 times in the game. And you were kind of just holding your breath if you were a Canuck fan like me.
I wondered if Quinn Hughes might have kept within himself in that game, because he wanted to be the leader and the captain, and he was bad, but he just wasn't electrifying Quinn Hughes. And I wonder if he was thinking, I'm going to be sort of the the rudder of this game for our defense and make sure that McDavid doesn't burn. What did you see out of Quinn Hughes?
I think what the word that comes to mind is selfless. And put a selfless game last night. He had to take a lot of hits in order to make plays coming out of the zone. You always worry when you see him go back like that, and you've got the likes of Vander Kane or someone else on their team coming and finishing their checks. But I thought he played a really controlled game last night. He's a puck mover. He's such a good puck mover. And there were so many times in the game where he got the puck out on his own. And I mean, that's a skill. When you keep the stats, there's the pass outs, there's the flip outs, there's the chip outs, and then there's the getting the puck out on your own. And those are the ones that are great, because very rarely do you see turnovers when guys are getting through and out of the zone on their own. I thought he played a strong game for them last night. It's a demanding game in these playoffs because you see so many hits. And when you're a defenseman, like Quinn Hughes or like Roenick, those guys carry the puck so much that they're exposing themselves to getting hit. So it's a dangerous game that they're playing at times, but they're doing it so effectively. And
one little nuance I liked about their breakout too, Crow, was when the Oilers would go against the wall, knowing that the Canucks were trying to break out. Canucks just knew that moment of when, and it was from unlikely candidates. Mikheyev had a great one when to peel the puck off the wall and take a little bit of a risk of that little 2-meter pass to a teammate just off the wall, in your own zone, kind of near the net, and it can be a risky play. But if the wall is cluttered with Oilers, eventually you have to try to go inside. And they were really good at deciding when to do that and providing the support of a guy that was right there. They have to get out, and they found a way out.
Yeah, and I think that's always, for me, that's always been the sign of a great NHL defenseman, a guy that can come to the middle and make those little 5-foot plays under pressure. And that speaks to about, at least 4 or 5 of the Canuck D right now. Again, they are winning a lot of battles on the wall, and you've got to win those little 5-foot puck battles. And I see the Canucks coming on the better end of most of those right now. But it's only one game, and you don't want to get too fired up if you're sitting there in the Canuck room today. There's a lot of work to go. But I sense a real sense of purpose with the Canucks right now, and I think they're getting more and more buy-in, and that's always nice to see.
Coach, Blake, myself, and tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of Canucks fans at 4-1 with Arturs Silovs, we're wondering, okay, his clock struck midnight here, and do you go out and get him in that spot, or do you make the change in the second intermission? What did you make of the coaching staff's call to leave the kid in there and let him play it out?
That's actually brilliant. Obviously the proof is in the pudding. He didn't have much work from that point on. So I think real kudos have to go to the Canucks defensive structure. I thought, there wasn't a lot of outnumbering chances. There wasn't a lot of poor play in the defensive zone. Like, their structure was really good last night, and he didn't have a lot of work from that point. I thought obviously the wraparound goal that Lindholm got at the end of the period was huge, and gave them a little bit of life going into the third. And I kind of was sitting out with my daughter-in-law last night, and I said, if they can score by the 10-minute mark, then they're going to be fine. And then they scored that, and it just seemed like there was so much life in the building. And I have to give it to the Canuck fans last night. They were terrific. That's the type of energy that players feast on. And people will say that it doesn't really matter. You don't really hear it. You hear it, and you sense the energy, and the energy was palpable in the building last night. It was as good as I've ever seen it, and I've seen a lot of pretty good games there.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you've been a part of some big ones in that building, Mark. That is some praise for Canucks fans and for the energy.
And Tocchet has said that it means something.
Absolutely,
it does
absolutely.
something. Yeah.
I mean, Elias has said it's totally different. You feed off the energy and the momentum of the crowd. Hey, Mark, just follow up on the goaltending call, because of course the young man is not accustomed to playing this degree of workload in this in the National Hockey League, let alone the Stanley Cup playoffs. We've seen more recently here in the last several years, 2 goaltenders in the Stanley Cup playoffs. We've seen what Boston has done here, and it looks like Swayman and the workload may have finally caught up to him, not used to playing that many in a row. I'd just like your take on where the sort of strategy and coaching thinking is going with regards to multiple goaltenders in the playoffs.
Well, I think, again, if they had their druthers, I used to love that. That Tom Watt used to always say that, my old coach. He said, if I had my druthers, I wonder what brothers were. But anyways, if I had the choice, I'd probably love to be able to have Demko. I mean, that's almost a no-brainer. But I like the Silovs. He doesn't shy away from the pressure. Obviously, that experience he had in the World Championship last year for Latvia, where he was MVP of the World Championship, that has really been a good motivating factor for him, and it's been a great experience. His play in the American League has been a great experience, and he just looks like he's at home and understands how good a defense he's playing in front of. And I think that's important, because let's face it, this isn't a premier goaltending matchup in this series, Skinner against Silvers. But at the same time, who's going to be the best guy? I mean, I like the Canucks' chances because I like this kid. He's playing. People love him. Sometimes it's the destiny. The fact that he wore a funny shirt. I mean, that's God sent stuff that you can just keep building on. So sometimes you just got to ride the wave. And I'm sure that that's probably what's going to go into their decision, especially with the health being limited of the other goalies.
God sent that pink paisley shirt to Hugo Boss, knowing a Canuck goaltender is going to buy it for some reason. And one of his
charismatic Latvian goalie will use this for good, not evil. Yes.
We're seeing signs here with Coach Crawford.
That is one great story.
Hey, Mark, what did Draisaitl look like to you last night, and how much do you think him not being at 100% could affect this series?
Well, it could affect it a lot. I mean, he's a top player, and when you're looking at the matchups in here, if you've got Miller against McDavid and you got Draisaitl sitting there against Lindholm, there's not much to pick and choose anyways, because all four of those guys have such quality. The third pair matchup is where Peterson gives the Canuck an edge, but I think Draisaitl's health, if he's 100% healthy, then he's a horse, and he can score on his own. And all he needs is like the chance that he got. One mistake, he got it, bang, it was home. And so he's that good a player, and you have to give special attention to him. But if he's not at 100%, it gives the Canucks a bit of an edge in that matchup. And, again, now it's up to whether or not, the Canucks centers can really play as well as they need to play. If you remember all the other years, it's always the centers that kind of win battles for you, whether it was, Kessler and the Sedins, or whether you keep going back, Morrison and Kessler and all those guys that we had back in our day. And then even go back to when I was playing. I mean, Thomas Gradin played, and Ivan Boldyrev played so well in that 82 playoff. They were amazing. And our third line center, Gary Lupel or Jerry Minor, they just rose to the occasion. And I see that happening here with this Canuck group. Teddy Bluger and, Lafferty and those guys, they're all rising to the occasion, even if it's just for a few shifts. They're all doing their jobs, and there's a nice bit of chemistry with those Canucks right now.
Do you remember the feeling of your trainer whispering in your Forsberg will not be coming back out to the game, or Naslund is done for the night? Do you remember that pit in your stomach when you heard that news?
Yeah, I just had it there about 2 weeks ago. We were
did you?
End of the first period, we lost Dennis Malgin, who was our number one center, and the doctor came to me. He says he can't go, and I kind of looked at him and said, "Oh well, okay. What are we going to have next?" But we found a way, and good teams always do. They find a way, and it becomes bigger than them. Guys just don't want to lose, and that's the type of attitude that you've got to have if you're going to be successful in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Mark, last question for me. I thought Tocchet gave a really interesting answer on the eve of this series when he was asked about the low shots on goal totals for the Canucks and the Predators series. And he said something along the lines of, I'm okay with that. I'd rather guys just hang on and possess the puck than shoot one wide. And he went on to explain that puck possession, even if it means few shots, is like a defensive tactic. He viewed it more through a defensive lens than he viewed it from we got to get pucks on net. That's where the offense is going to come from. We're seeing some really low shot totals in these Stanley Cup playoffs. Is this sort of a new mantra that coaches are talking to players about? Hey, rather than take a poor shot, just hold on to the puck and see if we can get a better one somewhere as we pass it around.
Yeah, and I think the possession rule is huge. You wear teams out because it's so much more tiring to defend than it is to play offense. Offense is about creativity, keeping your feet moving, protecting the puck, trying to get it into a better position, and trying to find people off the other side. And you can see the Canucks doing that so well. Actually, you see Edmonton doing that really well, to be truthful, as well. So, yes, it is a tactic. The other thing that coaches love to say is if you're taking the shot, remember, as the shooter, you're the guy that's in the best area to respond to where that shot goes. So make sure you put yourself in a position defensively that you recover really well. And I think that's what these playoffs are about too. It's not so much the pressure that you put on teams offensively, it's the back pressure that you put on teams so that they don't get much back the other way.
Hey, the possession rule. I mean, that's damn near 3-on-3 overtime, coach, just with 4 extra skaters on the ice, right? The same rule applies.
I was going to say, are we going to get to the point where a defenseman actually skates out to the neutral zone at 5-on-5 to reset rather than, just in the 3-on-3 overtime? Because, hey, if you got the puck again, as you just said, Mark, they're chasing you.
Yeah, and that's not a new tactic. I mean, you go back to the Soviets. The Soviets used to do it so well, and before that, I mean, the Toronto Maple Leafs used to play Kitty Bar the Door. I'm going into hockey history here now. Toronto Maple Leafs and Hap Day used to play Kitty Bar the Door. So they would never they'd always have the 4 guys back. So that was a defensive tactic. But when they got the puck, they were a puck control team that didn't attack unless they had a really good opportunity. So these are not new tactics. I think what's really neat, though, is seeing how everybody spreads out in the offensive zone here in the NHL. It's almost like a 4-corner Dean Smith, North Carolina possession rule in the offensive zone, and they're very good at it. The Canucks really are.
No shot clock in this sport, coach.
No, exactly.
I look forward to someone taking the puck with 5 minutes left and just bleeding it out like a football drive, running between the tackles.
You can see the energy. It's not just because the stakes are high. I think people love to see the breakdown, how you try to break down other teams' defenses, and when the passes get completed, that's pretty good thing of beauty. And I like seeing those things happen, even from a fan perspective. I think it's really cool to see how everybody's trying their tactics.
Well, speaking of breaking things down, you've done an amazing job of that with us, Mark. Thank you for the time here today, and we'll call upon you next week after a couple more games are done.
Okay, guys. Good luck to the Canucks next game. I'm off to Vegas. I'm going to see the Rolling Stones. I got a date with Mick.
There you go. Enjoy it, sir.
Hey, everybody. If you're enjoying what you're seeing here, then follow along with Sekeres and Price on YouTube. I promise more content coming.
The kids call it subscribe on YouTube.
Well, how about liking it?
Do that as well. Smash it right now.